We apologize for interrupting your doom scrolling. Now, for some positive leftist news.
PLN is a member of MeansTV, a worker-owned socialist streaming platform. Stay tuned until the end of the episode for a special 20% discount offer from MeansTV, and find the discount link and code in the description box below. Microsoft is facing an unprecedented worker uprising over its ties to Israel's war on Gaza, as employees escalate protests, occupations, and direct action against the tech giant's role in military surveillance and targeting. Their campaign has drawn global attention after several outlets exposed how Microsoft's Azure cloud technology underpins Israeli military surveillance, storing and analyzing millions of intercepted Palestinian phone calls. In late August, members of No Azure for Apartheid stormed and occupied the office of company president Brad Smith at the firm's Redmond headquarters. Workers hung banners renaming the building the Mai Ubaid building, honoring the Palestinian software engineer killed in Gaza. They also unrolled an 18-foot scroll signed by 2,000 Microsoft workers reading No Azure for Apartheid. A summons delivered to Smith accused him of crimes of genocide and warned failure to appear will increase escalation against all Microsoft executives, signed Microsoft workers. The action is the latest in what organizers call a workers' intifada against the U.S. military-industrial complex. 4 workers have been fired, joining other workers previously terminated for interrupting Microsoft events or speaking out against the company's ties to Israel. 7 people were arrested during the office occupation. 5 were former Microsoft workers or outside supporters. But No Azure for Apartheid says this repression only strengthens their resolve. Activists have expanded the struggle beyond corporate offices. A flotilla of kayaks appeared outside the waterfront mansions of Brad Smith and CEO Satya Nadella, unfurling a banner that read, "Microsoft kills kids." No Azure for Apartheid has vowed to escalate. Their statement reads, "We call on all workers and people of conscience around the world to join this worker intifada. Answer Gaza's call and escalate your efforts against all complicit executives and corporations." The Global Samud Flotilla, a convoy of boats carrying humanitarian aid and pro-Palestinian activists, set sail for Gaza this month after enduring 2 drone attacks and repeated delays. Their mission? To break Israel's blockade and establish a humanitarian sea corridor into Gaza. The flotilla, named after the Arabic word for perseverance, includes ships that sailed from Spain, Corsica, Sicily, Greece, and Tunisia. Hundreds of volunteers gathered at Tunisian ports to prepare vessels for the journey, with demand to join now outpacing the number of available spots. 2 flotilla ships, one which carried Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg, were struck while docked in Tunisia. Damage was reported, but no casualties. Organizers blamed Israel for the attacks. Tunisian authorities condemned what they call a premeditated aggression and opened an investigation. Despite the assaults, participants vowed to continue. Irish activist Tara Rayner O'Grady declared, "We are definitely sailing to Gaza. There is nothing that will prevent us sailing to Gaza whatsoever. Don't be distracted by the strikes. We are determined. We are clear and focused in the way we have to achieve our goal, which is to reach Gaza, break the siege, and open a humanitarian sea corridor." Speaking before departure, Greta Thunberg emphasized the mission's global message. "We are also trying to send a message to the people of Gaza that the world has not forgotten about you. When our governments are failing to step up, then we have no choice but to take matters into our own hands." As flotilla coordinator Yasmin Akar posted alongside images of the departing boats, "The blockade of Gaza must end. We are leaving for solidarity, dignity, and justice." Dock workers in Italy have issued a militant warning to Israel and European authorities. If the Gaza aid flotilla is blocked or silenced, they will shut down the flow of goods to Israel. The threat came as a new wave of ships departed from Genoa, joining the Global Samud Flotilla. At a rally on the Genoa docks, one dock worker representing the USB union declared around mid-September these boats will arrive near the coast of Gaza. "If we lose contact with our boats, with our comrades, even for just 20 minutes, we will shut down all of Europe." His words electrified the crowd as he vowed that from this region, 13,000 to 14,000 containers leave every year for Israel. Not a single nail will leave anymore. The warning is clear. European labor will use its collective power to defend the flotilla and resist complicity in genocide. In preparation for the voyage, workers and residents of Genoa organized a massive solidarity campaign. A food drive collected more than 300 tons of humanitarian aid, while more than 40,000 people flooded the streets in a torchlit march. Even the city's mayor, Silvia Salis, joined the mobilization, proclaiming, "Every day I am proud to be the mayor of the city, but tonight, if possible, I am even more so." On September 22nd, approximately 1 million people shut down Italy in a general strike for Gaza and the global SLAM-MATU flotilla. Workers, many of whom are members of the grassroots union Unione Sindacale di Base, shut schools, disrupted trains, and blocked ports and roads, citing reasons including the inertia of the Italian and EU governments to address the humanitarian crisis and stop the genocide. The protest also came after several other Western countries recognized the state of Palestine, however performatively, while Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni distanced Italy from that move. Protesters in Rome proclaimed, "The call came from Genoa's dockworkers, and here we are. We've blocked everything." The USB said on the day of the strike, "Workers have returned to center stage and are calling on citizens, all citizens, to stand up. They are not doing so for a contract renewal, but to demand justice for a distant and tormented people. In this age of selfishness and individualism, this seems unthinkable. But no, solidarity between peoples and brotherhood beyond borders are not dead and buried values. On the contrary, they are alive and kicking." Prominent Palestinian and Yemeni activists, along with demonstrators in Sana'a, have condemned Israel's recent military operations in Gaza and Yemen, emphasizing that such aggression will not deter support for the Palestinian cause. Abdulillah Hajar, advisor to the head of Yemen's Supreme Political Council, said Israel launched military operations thinking they could stop our support for the Palestinian cause. In fact, no action can make us stop moving forward and stop defending ourselves and the Palestinian people. Elbit Systems' weapons factory in Bristol now stands deserted, the latest victory in a sustained campaign of direct action against the Israeli arms giant. The site at Aztec West Business Park, long a target of Palestine action, has reportedly been shuttered, with The Guardian observing no staff present aside from a security guard stationed in a vehicle parked outside the premises. For years, activists repeatedly shut down operations through rooftop occupations, smashed windows, and waves of red paint, symbolizing the blood of Palestinians killed with Elbit's weapons. The final action came just a day before the group was formally prescribed as a terrorist organization by Home Secretary Yvette Cooper. While the state clamps down, the Bristol factory closure stands as proof of what direct action can achieve. We are all Palestine action. In a hard-won victory for land back organizers in Maine, the Wabanaki Commission on Land and Stewardship has stitched together thousands of acres into a single contiguous block of tribal land, a material reclaiming of territory and a fuck you to the centuries of dispossession that made this necessary. "This is what the whole land back movement should be focusing on," said one elder: local priorities, tribal decision-making, and practical care. The commission, made up of representatives from the 4 Wabanaki nations, moved to connect 2 large parcels in the Jackman region after tribal citizens reported encountering resistance from non-tribal locals when traveling between them. What began as a logistical problem became a political project. Restore continuity to the land so tribal members can move freely for hunting, fishing, ceremony, gathering, and everyday life. With the help of allied land conservation groups, the tribe closed on nearly 8,000 acres in June, bringing the contiguous total to roughly 28,000 acres. The purchase price was $5.4 million. The First Light consortium of Western land conservation groups agreed to raise the funds to repay the tribe. Fantastic, as tribes needing to buy back their own stolen land is egregious. Land back is not only an act of legal transfer, it is a restoration of social life. Connecting these parcels restores everyday freedoms denied by displacement: the right to move across ancestral territory without fear, the ability to hunt and gather without bureaucratic interference, the capacity to perform ceremonies in places that hold memory and meaning. Every acre returned is a small reversal of centuries of enclosure and privatization. Rochester's Park Avenue neighborhood turned into a front line of resistance in early September when over 100 people confronted ICE agents at a residential job site, forcing federal officers into retreat. What began as an attempted arrest ended with protesters chanting "shame" and "Gestapo" while a Border Patrol SUV limped away on 4 slashed tires to the sound of applause. The target was Chino, a roofer with more than 25 years in the United States, legal work papers, and a baby on the way. For hours, 2 other workers stayed perched on the roof as ICE agents waited below, threatening warrantless arrests. But as the crowd swelled, immigrant advocates urged agents to leave. The coalition is committed to standing alongside farm workers, immigrants, and migrants to ensure dignity, fairness, and access to justice, said Irene Sanchez of the Western New York Coalition of Farm Workers Serving Agencies. With chants rising and neighbors rallying, the agents relented, slipping away under escort. For Rochester clergy and community leaders, the standoff was proof of solidarity in action. These folks deserve the same opportunity that each of us get, and so it's important that we are here. We are Rochester strong, and we will not have ICE coming in and dividing us, said Reverend Myra Brown of Spiritus Christi. We are one Rochester, and we will always be one Rochester. We will show up for each other. The raid comes as Trump's second administration escalates its war on sanctuary cities, deploying National Guard troops and vowing to flood the zone in immigrant communities. Rochester's sanctuary city policy has already drawn a federal lawsuit, and the Park Avenue confrontation follows a Supreme Court ruling greenlighting racial profiling in ICE operations. The confrontation on Westminster Road revealed the strength of collective defiance when communities choose solidarity over fear. We love to see it. In East York, Toronto, nearly 100 working-class households facing mass eviction scored a major victory in their 2-year fight against Canada's largest private landlord, Starlight Investments. The tenants, who launched one of the country's longest-running rent strikes, announced this week that they had reached an amicable agreement with the corporate giant. The Thorncliffe Park tenants began withholding rent in May 2023, protesting unsafe conditions, disruptive renovations, and rent hikes that went beyond Ontario's legal guidelines for rent-controlled apartments. Their strike escalated into a full confrontation with Starlight, which has rapidly bought up housing across Canada, amassing 54,000 suites. For tenants, the landlord's pattern was clear: displace and extract. Despite these tactics, tenants held firm. Over the last 2 years, they built protests, demonstrations, and community power that made Starlight's aggressive eviction applications policy toxic. Tenants have been pretty consistent in terms of their protests and actions, and bringing a lot of attention to Starlight's business practices, said organizer Phil Zygmunt. Obviously, that put pressure on Starlight. Through collective struggle, mass eviction has been averted and the rent strike is over. More importantly, tenants walk away not only with secured homes, but also with new organizing capacity. As Zygmunt put it, the fight taught renters how to mobilize, defend one another, and challenge Canada's most powerful landlord on its own turf. At 3801 St. Denis Street in Montreal, tenants have won a decisive victory against a nearly 20% rent hike, proving once again that organized resistance can beat landlord greed. After weeks of negotiation and direct action led by the Montreal Autonomous Tenants Union, or MATU, landlord Mario St. Cyr was forced to roll back his proposed 19.8% increase to zero. Instead, tenants will now pay their own electricity costs, which were previously included in the rent. The struggle was fueled by months of mounting frustration. Since St. Cyr bought the building in 2022, tenants reported invasive behavior, unauthorized renovations, and unlivable conditions during prolonged construction. Tenants organized picket lines outside the building, rallied community support, and launched a boycott of St. Cyr's cafe business downstairs. Their persistence forced the landlord to the table, despite his claims that higher rents were justified by market value and costly repairs. For tenants, that logic was nothing more than exploitation dressed up as economics. There's this myth of housing being passive income or investment, but that's not the reality. The income is not passive, it's just exploitation of a tenant's income, said MATU organizer Owen. The victory comes against a backdrop of rising rents across Montreal and a provincial government that has consistently sided with landlords. For tenants at 3801 St. Denis, the rollback represents more than saving hundreds of dollars a month. It is proof that collective struggle works. As Maharjan put it, our protests were effective enough for Mario to have a change of heart. New Mexico is making history as the first state in the U.S. to guarantee free childcare to every parent beginning November 1st. The initiative, announced by Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham, expands a program that previously served families with incomes below 400% of the federal poverty line, now opening access to all parents regardless of income. By investing in universal childcare, we are giving families financial relief, supporting our economy, and ensuring that every child has the opportunity to grow and thrive, Lujan Grisham said. The program directs funds to childcare providers with rates set based on a child's age, the facility, and quality of care. Families are expected to save an average of $12,000 annually, a critical relief in a state where single parents can spend more than a third of their income on childcare, and infant costs often exceed $14,000 per year. Lena Billick, program manager at the Roosevelt Institute, emphasized childcare is a cost of living issue, noting that higher wages for providers are essential to sustaining access. While New Mexico currently faces a shortfall of 5,000 early childhood professionals, officials are recruiting new educators, partnering with employers, and offering incentive rates to providers. The state has also launched a $12.7 million low-interest loan fund to expand and renovate facilities, with additional funding planned in the 2027 budget. This welcomed move is crucial for economic justice, family support, and gender equity. In Brazil, former far-right President Jair Bolsonaro was sentenced to over 27 years in prison for plotting a military coup and seeking to annihilate the country's democracy. The federal Supreme Court found Bolsonaro guilty of attempting to cling to power after losing the 2022 election, with one justice declaring he tried to annihilate the essential pillars of the democratic rule of law state, the greatest consequence of which would have been the return of dictatorship to Brazil. Justice Carmen Lucia Antunes Rocha, delivering the decisive vote, condemned the effort to sow the malignant seed of anti-democracy while affirming that Brazilian democracy was not shaken. Bolsonaro's plot, according to the court, involved a slow-burn conspiracy stretching from July 2021 to January 2023, culminating in the violent storming of Brasilia by his supporters after Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva assumed the presidency. Alongside Bolsonaro, 7 of his close allies, including former defense ministers, his spy chief, and his former justice minister, were also convicted for their roles in planning to violently abolish democracy. Left-wing politicians and activists celebrated the verdict as a historic victory. Lindbergh Farias of Lula's Workers' Party declared, "Brazil is saying coups are a crime." Bolsonaro remains under house arrest, guarded to prevent flight, while Brazil's left celebrates the accountability imposed on a former leader who sought to dismantle democratic institutions, devastate the environment, and attack minority communities. Kerala, the left-ruled southern state of India, has achieved a landmark victory for public health, recording an infant mortality rate, or IMR, of just 5 for 1,000 live births, lower than the United States and many developed countries. The national IMR in India remains 5 times higher at 25. Kerala's Minister of Health, Veena George, hailed the milestone as a triumph of universal access. Unlike the rest of India, which sees variation in the IMR between rural and urban areas, Kerala achieved a universal IMR rate across its regions. The achievement reflects decades of investment by the Left Democratic Front in building a robust public health system, even as privatization has left much of India without reliable healthcare. Arathi PM of Mahatma Gandhi University noted that the LDF government in Kerala initiated 16 hospitals in the state that won national certifications and was among the first in India to implement advanced focused care programs. The results extend beyond infant mortality. Kerala now boasts India's highest life expectancy and the greatest density of healthcare workers, with 114 per 10,000 people. Arathi frames these achievements as a political victory. We have to identify Kerala's achievements in healthcare or in any social welfare as a moment of ideological victory of resistance against neoliberal economic policies. The left's commitment to universal public healthcare has defied central government underfunding and attempts to privatize essential services, demonstrating that health equity is achievable when social welfare is prioritized over profit. Trade unions in the UK have vowed to oppose the Supreme Court's April ruling on transgender rights, calling the government's guidance on single-sex spaces flawed and inconsistent. Delegates at the Trades Union Congress, or TUC, unanimously passed a motion condemning the ruling, which stated that sex inequality law refers to biological sex and does not automatically include trans people with a gender recognition certificate. The union said this decision contradicts European Court of Human Rights precedent and has fueled a rise in transphobic hate, particularly promoted by far-right groups. The TUC has committed to campaigning for new legal protections for trans and non-binary people and to develop guidance on challenging transphobia in the workplace. In a powerful push against energy poverty rooted in centuries of colonial exploitation, China is helping Africa harness the sun. According to the International Energy Agency, roughly 750 million people worldwide lacked electricity in 2024, with 600 million of them, or 80%, living in Africa. Millions rely on wood for cooking and heating, exposing families to toxic indoor pollution, even when electricity is available. Chinese solar panel manufacturers, constrained by a saturated domestic market and threatened by US tariffs, have turned to Africa, driving a surge in imports. Data from Ember shows solar panel imports to the continent jumped 60% from June 2024 to June 2025, setting a new record that could transform national energy systems. Low-income countries like Mali and Malawi, as well as larger middle-income nations such as Algeria, Nigeria, and South Africa, are rapidly deploying solar infrastructure to meet growing demand. Chad exemplifies this transformation, with just 6.4% of its 21 million people having electricity access, far below the sub-Saharan African average of 48%. The government aims to raise access to 30% by 2027 and 53% by 2030. The plan centers on a solar park in the capital, including battery storage for nighttime power. Chad also hosts 1.5 million refugees, highlighting the urgency of energy equity in one of the world's most electrification-deprived nations. If you have good news from the current month, please send your stories to mexi@protonmail.com. As mentioned, we have a special offer for viewers from MeansTV, which is a worker-owned cooperative dedicated to supporting and producing anti-capitalist media. The streaming service hosts us, along with other rad creators like Second Thought and Luna Oi, full-length documentaries like Abby Martin's Gaza Fights for Freedom, and Means original content like Means Morning News, Seriously Wrong's Papa and Boy, and much more. We're happy to announce that we are now able to offer viewers a discount on joining MeansTV. If you sign up using our link and code, which is MEXI, you'll get 20% off your first month, which comes to $7.99. Or you could go with the annual option and get 20% off the entire year. Signing up using our code not only directly contributes to the financial sustainability of the Means Cooperative Media Project, but is also a great way to support our channel. So if you have the means, consider taking us up on the discount. The link and code are in the description box below. Thank you to Javi for the Positive News Jams. Thank you to Cosmo for the Positive News background. Thank you to me and Catherine for script writing and production and hosting. And thank you to the Hazels for editing this video. If you'd like to support the show, please go to patreon.com/positiveleftistnews, or you can give us a one-time tip via PayPal. The link is in the description box below.